Timothy McVey. Timothy McVey wasn't just a terrorist, he was the human version of a red flag parade. A military dropout with a superiority complex and a rage boner for the U.S. government, he masterminded the deadliest act of domestic terrorism in American history before 9/11. And the most chilling part? He thought he was the good guy. On April 19, 1995, McVey parked a rented Ryder truck outside the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. Inside that truck was 5,000 pounds of homemade explosives, fertilizer, fuel, and pure hate. At 9:02 a.m., he detonated it, killing 168 people and injuring over 680. The blast left a crater 8 feet deep and 30 feet wide. Buildings around it collapsed like paper. And his reason for this absolutely evil thing was revenge. He claimed it was payback for the Waco siege and Ruby Ridge, times when U.S. law enforcement messed up and people died. He believed the government was evil and out of control. In his mind, he was fighting back. But instead of targeting the people responsible, he attacked innocent workers, kids, and families. He thought killing civilians would wake America up. What makes him terrifying isn't just the body count, it's the clinical zero remorse attitude. He described the youth who died as collateral damage, like he was talking about a video game. Even on death row, he stayed smug. No apologies, no regret. His last words were literally a quote from Invictus. Of course, the most arrogant poem ever written. Anders Behring Breivik. Some terrorists want to watch the world burn. Anders Behring Breivik? He made a PowerPoint first, then he set it on fire. In 2011, this Norwegian extremist committed the deadliest act on Norway since World War II. First, he bombed government buildings in Oslo, killing 8. Then, just a couple hours later, he dressed as a police officer, took a boat to a political youth camp on the island of Utoya, and shot 69 people, mostly teenagers, one by one. His total body count, 77 in a single day. That's a mass murder and a domestic terror attack with a higher kill rate than many active war zones, and all of it calmly planned down to the bullet. He wasn't part of any big network, no underground cells, just one guy with internet access, a warehouse, and a warped ego the size of Scandinavia. He wrote a 1,500-page manifesto full of far-right rants, anti-immigration screeds, and weird self-help tips like how to bulk up with steroids before slaughtering innocents. Classic motivational speaker meets genocidal maniac. Breivik didn't snap, he scheduled. He was a premeditated horror with Microsoft Office receipts. He even smirked during his trial and said he regretted not going further. The worst part? Norway's max prison sentence is 21 years. Though he's in solitary, he still sends letters and sues over things like cold coffee and not enough moisturizer. Literally murdering 77 people, and he's worried about his skin care. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. Omar Maten. Some people get angry and vent to their group chat, but Omar Maten grabbed a rifle and committed one of the deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history. That's not just evil, that's industrial-grade psychopathy with a death toll to match. In 2016, Maten walked into Pulse, a gay nightclub in Orlando, and opened fire. He killed 49 people, wounded 53 more, and wrecked hundreds of lives in just 3 hours. He was not some tactical genius. He was an angry, radicalized security guard with too much access and a fragile ego. And yet, his body count made him one of the most lethal domestic terrorists in modern American history. Deadlier than the Boston Marathon bombers and almost neck and neck with Timothy McVey. Maten had a rap sheet of red flags: abusive, homophobic, allegedly self-loathing, and obsessed with extremist ideologies he barely understood. He claimed allegiance to ISIS, but also Hezbollah, which, plot twist, are sworn enemies. That's like pledging loyalty to both Batman and the Joker. His terrorism wasn't strategic, it was chaotic, ego-driven, and fueled by an identity crisis with a kill switch. He didn't die a martyr. He died a cliché, gunned down in a bathroom after hiding behind hostages. The worst part about it was that the FBI had already interviewed him twice, and still he slipped through the cracks and everybody ignored him until it bled. Stephen Paddock. Usually, when someone unleashes hell on Earth, there's a motive. Rage, revenge, ideology, a manifesto scrawled in the margins of madness. But Stephen Paddock? Nothing. No cause, no statement, no warning. Just a 64-year-old millionaire who decided one night in Vegas to become Death, the destroyer of lives. On October 1st, 2017, Paddock smashed out a window on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel and opened fire on a music festival crowd. He sprayed over 1,000 rounds into 22,000 innocent people just living their lives. 60 died. Over 850 were injured. And if you're doing the mental math, that's a kill rate that would make an actual war zone flinch. He brought 23 guns to the party, installed surveillance in the hallway like he was prepping for a hostage negotiation, not a massacre. He didn't yell anything, didn't leave a manifesto, didn't even try to run. Just cold, methodical evil executed with the calm of someone rearranging furniture. This man didn't even seem angry. He was literally just calmly executing the deadliest mass shooting in US history like it was his final to-do list. No one saw it coming. But how do you profile a guy with no criminal history, no clear ideology, and no digital trail of hate? You can't. That's what made him so terrifying. Eric Rudolph. Eric Rudolph wasn't some shadowy criminal genius. He was a self-righteous, homegrown terrorist with a god complex and a backpack full of pipe bombs. If you've ever seen someone weaponize religion to feel powerful instead of actually being helpful, congratulations, you've seen a Rudolph in the wild. His greatest hit was the 1996 Olympic Park bombing. What was supposed to be a global celebration turned into chaos because Rudolph wanted to make a statement. The statement? I hate abortion, homos, and women's rights. Except instead of handing out flyers, he murdered 2 people, injured over 100, and then ran. After that, he bombed 2 abortion clinics and a lesbian nightclub like he was checking boxes on some twisted purgatory bingo. He called it a moral stand. Most of us call it terrorism with extra hypocrisy. And once he'd done enough damage, the coward vanished into the woods for 5 years. Literal years, like a raccoon with a manifesto. Now, even though the mortality rate was low by mass casualty standards, the truth is that this wasn't about body count. It was about terror. Psychological damage, shattered lives, constant fear. When he finally got caught behind a grocery store dumpster, because of course he did, he didn't beg for forgiveness. He doubled down. This wasn't a misunderstood man with a mission. This was a coward who used God's name to justify cruelty and left a trail of pain, not purpose. Brenton Tarant. Brenton Tarant wasn't born evil. He wasn't raised in a war zone or brainwashed by a cult. He was a personal trainer from small-town Australia, worked at a gym, traveled a bit, smiled in photos. On paper, just another guy. And that's what makes him terrifying. Because Tarant didn't snap. He downloaded extremism, slowly, quietly, from the internet. By the time he launched one of the worst terrorist attacks in New Zealand's history, he was fully radicalized. On March 15, 2019, Tarant walked into 2 mosques in Christchurch, armed to the teeth, and live-streamed his attack like he was Twitch streaming Call of Duty. Except this wasn't a game, it was a hate-fueled massacre. He murdered 51 people and injured 40 more. Most were praying. All were targeted purely because they were Muslim. He left behind a 74-page manifesto, and inside was basically what happens when racism, paranoia, and Reddit threads have a baby. He ranted about white genocide, immigration conspiracies, and even named other mass shooters like they were action heroes. He wasn't just committing violence, he was trying to franchise it. And he almost did. His attack sparked copycats, security crackdowns, and a global reckoning about online radicalization. But make no mistake, Tarant wasn't a lone wolf. He was the result of an algorithm-fed echo chamber that fed his ego and weaponized his hate. And here's the most chilling part: he was disturbingly methodical. He planned for 2 years, trained like a soldier, and picked New Zealand, a peaceful country with low gun violence, just to shock the world. He's now serving life in prison without parole, but the damage he's done was permanent. Nadal Hassan. You expect your doctor to check your blood pressure, not become a national security threat. But Nadal Hassan flipped that expectation on its head and then lit it on fire. Hassan was a U.S. Army psychiatrist. Yep, psychiatrist. The guy who's supposed to help soldiers process trauma became the trauma. In 2009, he walked into Fort Hood, a military base in Texas, and opened fire on his fellow soldiers. He killed 13 people, wounded over 30. It was the deadliest mass shooting on a U.S. military base ever, and the guy did it in uniform. So, how does someone trained to save lives end up becoming a textbook case of radicalized lone wolf terrorism? Hassan was deep in extremist ideology long before the attack. He praised suicide bombers. He emailed known al-Qaeda figures like Anwar al-Awlaki. He believed the U.S. military was waging war against Islam, and in his mind, murdering his fellow soldiers was defending his faith. The army saw signs, lots of them, but they brushed them off, possibly out of fear of being seen as discriminatory. That hesitation cost lives. Hassan never denied what he did. In fact, he doubled down, calling himself a soldier of Allah, and said he did it to protect Taliban fighters. Not a moment of regret, no remorse, just a disturbing level of calm, like he thought he was the hero in his own fan fiction. His trial was a circus. He represented himself at trial and even argued for the death penalty, which, by the way, he got. He's currently on death row, paralyzed from the waist down after being shot by police during the attack. James Holmes. On July 20th, 2012, people walked into a movie theater expecting action on the screen, not in the aisles. They came for The Dark Knight Rises. They left in chaos, blood, and horror, because one man decided he wanted to play a villain in real life. That's right, this guy dyed his hair orange, called himself the Joker, and shot 70 people in a packed movie theater like it was a scene he wrote himself. James Holmes wasn't driven by religion, politics, or revenge. He wasn't part of a group. He wasn't even angry in the traditional sense. He was a neuroscience dropout with slipping sanity and a disturbingly methodical plan. Months before the attack, Holmes was stockpiling ammo like it was a Black Friday sale. Over 6,000 rounds, armor, tear gas, and 4 different guns. He chose the Aurora, Colorado theater carefully. Biggest crowd, smallest risk of getting stopped. At the midnight premiere, he walked in dressed like a tactical villain and opened fire. He tossed a gas canister, blocked the exits, and started shooting. He wasn't aiming for shock, he was aiming for stats. 12 people were killed. 70 others were injured. It's one of the highest casualty counts in U.S. mass shooting history. The only reason more people didn't die was because his gun jammed, thankfully. But it almost got worse because this guy rigged his apartment with enough homemade explosives to level the building. Luckily, that part didn't go off. What makes Holmes terrifying isn't just the death toll, it's the disconnect. He kept a journal like a science project, weighing human life against impact value. No ideology, no manifesto, just clinical, calculated mass murder. George Hennard. Some terrorists want power, some want chaos. George Hennard just wanted revenge on everyone. If you're trying to understand how raw hatred, toxic entitlement, and unhinged misogyny can mix into a human time bomb, you don't need to scroll far past October 16th, 1991. That's the day Hennard plowed his pickup truck through the front window of a Lubby's cafeteria in Killeen, Texas, and shot 50 people in broad daylight. 23 of them died. It was the deadliest mass shooting in American history at the time. Hennard wasn't part of a terror group, he was the terror group. He hated women, immigrants, basically anyone who wasn't him. His journals were a red flag symphony, ranting about bitches and racial mix. In his twisted little worldview, the world owed him everything, and since it didn't deliver, he went full supervillain. Psychologists would call this a mix of narcissistic rage, paranoia, and a god complex with no off switch. The dude wasn't just angry, he was terminally entitled. What made Hennard terrifying isn't just the body count, though a 46% mortality rate in a mass shooting is horrifying on its own. It's the psychology behind it. He wasn't psychotic, he was calculated, cold. He waited for a packed lunch hour. He picked a target with no symbolic meaning, just maximum vulnerability. He didn't want to prove a point, he wanted to punish the world. Robert Bowers. Some people fall down the internet rabbit hole and come out with weird skincare tips. Robert Bowers came out with a plan to kill. On October 27, 2018, Bowers walked into the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh and opened fire during Saturday morning services. He murdered 11 people, the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in U.S. history, all because he believed a conspiracy theory that Jewish people were secretly helping immigrants invade America. Yeah, that's what triggered it. Before the shooting, Bowers was active on a far-right platform called Gab, where he posted things like, "All Jews must die." He wasn't hiding it. He thought he was starting a war. Instead, he started a national nightmare. Armed with an AR-15 and 3 handguns, Bowers turned a peaceful worship service into a war zone. He didn't just want to scare people, he wanted to erase them. Every single person he shot died. His kill rate, 100%. That's not just violent, that's clinical level evil. He was arrested at the scene after being shot by police. In 2023, he was convicted on 63 federal charges and sentenced to death. So now he waits alone in a cell, while families grieve and a community tries to recover from something they'll never forget. Dylann Roof. Let's talk about Dylann Roof, the guy who walked into a church and made himself the poster child for modern domestic terrorism. In 2015, he murdered 9 black churchgoers during a Bible study in Charleston, South Carolina. The scariest part about this was the fact that this guy sat through an hour-long Bible study before shooting them dead. This was premeditated, cold, and calculated. You see, Roof wasn't just racist. He was ideologically possessed. He devoured white supremacist forums like they were gospel, wrote a bizarre manifesto, and believed his little massacre would ignite a race war. Spoiler alert, it didn't. America just got another horrifying name to add to the "how is this still happening" list. His attack hit harder because it happened in a church, a place meant for peace. The impact wasn't just physical, it was emotional, cultural, and deeply psychological. Roof didn't run. He wanted to be caught, wanted people to know his name. That makes him different from some mass shooters. He saw himself as a symbol. But all he really proved is that hate doesn't need numbers to destroy lives. Just one person, one weapon, and one twisted belief can change everything.